and of course, hosted by
Hello.
Rory. Will, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, okay. So Andre Cronje, of course. I mean, we've covered solidly on Solidity Fridays before. Rapid prototyper, as in he became very famous, I would say, for being able to kind of conceptualize ideas, get a prototype out very fast, and that was like his thing. I mean, if I can actually just personally plug myself for a second, I do a podcast for the Ethereum Cat Herders and have an interview with him there for like an hour. So, I mean, if anybody wants more details on that, there's a bunch of them there. He talks about this. He's probably the most famous for creating Yearn, even though, and this seems to be like a weird thing that people don't realize, he dropped out of Yearn pretty early in. His thing in general is rapidly prototyping. Yeah, thanks a bunch for putting that up on there. New episode with Chase Chapman dropped yesterday. So his thing isn't so much maintaining things; it's really rapidly prototyping them. So he dropped out of Yearn a few months in, though for some reason people think that he still ran it after that, which is profound. But I mean, whatever, things are profound anyway. So he gets a lot of hate for all sorts of reasons, which I think are beyond the scope of even trying to describe here and are incredibly irrational, in my humble opinion. And so after a number of controversies around a project that he was involved with, he just kind of disappeared, deleted his Twitter account, and has really just kind of gone incognito. In my humble opinion, again, it's difficult for me to imagine that he didn't just restart with an Anon account. He loves the innovation. He loves the space. You can see it in his writing. I kind of suspect he's just now gonna use an alt or something like that. And I mean, it is a huge loss. Even so, I would say, just to have him like not able to, so to speak, like tweet as himself or keep up with the space as himself. But we wanted to spend some time kind of looking at some of his innovations. And also neglected to finalize what we would be looking at. We looked at Solidly on the show before, so I think we should probably skip Solidly this time. Yearn is probably a bit too big and really isn't like the best demonstration of Andre code at this point also. I would say, being that I don't even know what % of the code base is him at this point. It'd be fun to guess, like in terms of lines of code, how many lines, like what % of lines in Yearn are actually written by Andre at this point. I personally would guess not many. Like I'd probably put it under 20% if I just had to really like just take a shot at it.
Mostly
yeah, what?
In the early stuff, in the first, like the vault that balanced between Aave and Compound, and maybe Maker as well, or I think Maker may have come in later. And then like the launch of the token. I don't know. It would be interesting to go back and see some of those early things. And then there was also, so I'm just going back through his Medium articles to see
what else there is.
Unless I'm mistaken, I think his first sort of thing, or his first major thing in crypto was Phantom. Maybe we should start there.
The truth is, I've never fully understood his connection with Phantom. I know he was involved. Like, was he building infra there? Because, like, I know he was consulting with them.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. As far as I know, he was just like a strategic consultant, but that may have been more recently with all his sort of like his clout and fame. Yeah, and with Phantom sort of probably getting into lower levels of like building and stuff. I don't know if Andre suited or would want to build at sort of like those levels.
Yeah, there's also fixed forex and rarity. Like if we're trying to do like the full, like, the full list of Andre projects. You mentioned Keeper already?
I didn't, but yes, that's a good one.
And Keeper.
Wow, look at this. Yield aggregator problem number 1. when they were still called Iron Finance. Well,
Yeah.
published by Word.
Maybe Keeper? I don't know. What do you say about Keeper? I think I'd go for looking at Keeper. Why not?
We can let's do the Keeper code.
Keeper's actually one that's interesting because I think he actually was very involved in the V2 over there. Look at that stellar commit chart, everyone. I just want to point that out on the side.
Sheesh. There we go. There's Mr.
Ben
Ace.
Sparks, ladies and gentlemen, Solidity lead, Linum Labs.
Okay, so there is Mr. Andre Cronje. Actually, maybe we should look at his GitHub.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Wow.
Very bursty. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Can you do the heat chart that shows like how much this, how much that? You know what I'm talking about? Like how much of it's commits and how much of it's like thingy. I don't know how that. I don't even know how to get there. I just see people like taking screenshots and making memes out of it.
I don't know. Well, there we go. But it's full commits.
It's full commits. That's funny. That's really funny.
Yeah. You can see also like the things he contributes to. So back in, actually, I wonder when he got started in crypto. 2017?
I don't remember. That sounds about right.
Because 2018 is the first one where we see public stuff. Okay, so there's some code reviews and pull requests and issues, 1% issues. And this is Phantom. So this was all the Phantom stuff. Go EVM, very nice. And then 2019 came along. This is interesting, ZAR network. So this ZAR is like the symbol for Rand.
That sounds familiar.
The South African currency.
Oh, and fixed forex, I think, kind of came out of this. That sounds really familiar.
Well, so he's been quite interested, I think, in forex and different currencies. I mean, we'll see that fixed forex later on. But so it's interesting to see this because I know then he was supporting this group called ZAR. Here we go. There it is. ZAR stablecoin, which was another sort of rand pegged stablecoin for South Africa. And I don't know how involved he was in this, but this was probably 2021.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, let's go back here.
Yep.
So, I mean, this is quite interesting that we obviously Maker I think was around by now. This was 2019.
2019, yeah.
Yeah.
Works way around. I think Better Die even launched in 2019, if I remember.
Yeah. I think ETHLend was a thing. Uniswap V1, I think.
No, in 19 should already be V2, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, maybe you're right. V2. Really? Wow.
I'm pretty sure Uniswap V1 was 2018. But I could be totally wrong.
Uniswap, because like that seems very impressive for V2. The Uniswap V2 is still like so impactful.
Yeah, the dominant AMM, yeah.
Yeah. V1 launch. When did they launch? Yeah.
Or I should say the dominant general purpose AMM. When you're talking about like pairs, so then already it's going to either be V3 or Curve.
Yeah, but like V2 was so elegant and so reusable and so versatile, and everyone.
V1 launched in November 2018. I got the right year there, barely.
There we go. It will exist for as long as Ethereum does. Anyway, we're getting a bit sidetracked there. Yeah, so that's interesting to put this stablecoin network that he was going with around the time of like the really early DeFi, before DeFi summer. Cool. BNB chain, hey?
Yo. Interesting. What's he doing over there?
What is he doing over there? This was also 2019, hey? Like.
Okay, that's fair.
Quite interesting. I wonder what he was doing over there on BNB chain.
contributing to the BEPS, apparently.
BEPS.
BEP.
Okay. Okay, let's not filter by that. June analytics, nice. Hiring. So 2020. So this is the year I think Andre blew up.
The year of the Andre.
Yeah. So with Urine specifically, but then a few other innovations that came later, like Keeper. So you'll see here. I think let's look at like mid-February. I think this is when Urine was in full effect. Yeah, there we go. iToken.
Okay.
Look at these like early things. Y-Swap Finance.
Right, that was before. I think it was before it was called Yearn. First, it was iEarn, and I think Banteg was actually the one who came up with Yearn.
I remember seeing a screenshot of their conversation about the name. Yeah. Chris Black, DeFi Watch. Yeah, so this little cluster of code looks like it was that was like the Urine launch going on there, and then he took a break. So I didn't. Well, do you want to get into any of this Urine code from here?
I feel like Yearn's going to be a bit too monolithic.
Maybe, yeah.
But we could if you want.
I'd be interested to see. I wonder if we could find it, like the early, whatever it was. Like I think it would just have been like one contract or two contracts.
So I mean, if you want, you could go to like iEarn or iSwap or like whatnot. I mean, we could do that.
Is that what it was?
I mean, a bit of a trick might also be just to see where the latest commits are. Like, we're looking for something that hasn't been really updated much since like earlier 2020, probably.
Yeah. iEarn Finance, Urine Docs, Y-Swap. I mean, that's
Yeah.
There we
iEarn
go.
Finance also would probably be a good one.
But okay,
because this is probably going to be swaps, right? Oh, and it looks like it's front end.
Let's just go down, maybe.
Oh yeah, that's an interesting way to do
it. 28 days ago, these guys are active.
Sure.
Uni Finance.
Why Uni? I borrow. I leverage App Oracle.
Yeah, chat. If
anyone
has a link to the early Urine Finance contracts, it'll be super interesting to get into.
Maybe some of them are actually in Andre as opposed to in Urine. Like if you go back to the Andre page, there was that iEarn Finance repo.
Y credits.
No, further down, like by checking his commits. I know you. Oh, you could do it this way also. It's a good call.
Urine Vaults.
No, but now that'll be the new ones. That isn't going to be.
This was
okay. Here, it should be somewhere around here. I would think.
Too early. Now we're in.
Too early. You're early.
Back.
We are so early.
Bancor liquidity pool with compound. This must have been the experiments that he was sort of led to you.
Yeah.
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 There we go. Well, yeah, I mean, maybe
8 November. Yeah, why not? Give it a shot. Let's do it. We're 15 minutes in and haven't looked at any code yet. We should just do something, I'd say.
Yeah. Okay. I wonder if we're going to have to come face to face with Viper.
Doesn't look like it. Why Vault Soul? So you're right that in modern Urine, so the vaults are in Viper and the strategies are in Solidity.
Yeah. Alrighty.
So what are we? Which Solidity is this? 517. Could you make the font size a little bit bigger?
Yeah, sure. Let me go into.
Interesting. Also, who the contributors are.
I think I saw was Doggy there, and
Yeah.
Milky Clan.
And Milky Kim was too. Actually, just to answer a question in chat, Edson is asking any insight to why Yearn uses Viper in the vaults. So there's actually a really nice talk by Faku, who's I think head of comms, if I remember correctly, in Yearn from ETHCC this past year, where he talks about how to write strategies for Yearn, but he also gives a really nice overview. So the vault, I mean, where Viper shines is if you don't have any complex inheritance, I would say. And it's a little bit easier, I don't know about a little bit easier, like, you know, if Doggo ever hears that, he's gonna like send me hate mail for saying a little, I think. The Viper crowd maintain that it is much more secure to use Viper than Solidity, a lot less foot gunning. They've done a lot of really amazing work with the compiler also. And so the vaults, which are supposed to be very static, they felt that Viper was a better choice for them. Whereas with Solidity, you generally need inheritance. You're interacting with you're interacting with all kinds of different platforms, so it's much easier to use Solidity than Viper there. So just to have the kind of flexibility, so they still use Solidity in the strategies. Okay, so we're in Solidity 5 over here. Still have safe ERC20. Yeah. Using address for address, safe math, okay, 20, ERC20, a min and a max. Interesting. I wonder what those are. Address for the governance, address for the controller. Controller, I assume, is just going to be able to like move things into different strategies. Using ABI encode pact to create the name and the symbol for the Y token. All right. Okay. Yeah, so far so good, I'd say. Back when you had to put the visibility on the constructor public. Interesting.
Nice.
Yeah. Back then.
Detailed. So many details.
Yeah, I kind of wonder what ERC20 detailed is. Do you know that off the top of your head, like what that is? It's coming out of the Open Zeppelin I saw from the imports.
Yeah, I think it's like an older naming scheme when like putting
decimals, maybe.
Whatever. Yeah, I think it's around the decimals. You could specify that or something like that. And the recent ones, it's not that important. Like it's just ERC20, and you could like overload the decimals. Cool. So then yeah, we set that the token. Governance is message.sender. Interestingly, so the deployer, and then the controller is whatever you pass in. Yeah. Balance
makes sense also though if you need the DAO to deploy it, like, you know, you have to like get the DAO to deploy in your vault or something like that.
Yeah. Okay, so there's doing some aggregation of balance here. So you're getting for this the specified token. So let's say DAI. Let's just go with DAI for now, I guess.
Yeah, sounds good.
We get the balance from this thing, from this contract, and the balance of the controller. And we add those, and that's what we report as the balance.
So the controller, I guess the controller has like a certain amount of funds. That sounds really familiar, actually. That really does sound very familiar from what I remember from Yearn also. That with Yearn, there's a certain kind of like fractional reserve that they keep inside the vault for people to be able to exit easily. And then the controller is the one that's like actively farming with the funds.
Yeah.
So it might also have a balance.
Look at this. Hey?
I think that sounds right to me. I could be wrong though. So that min thing is also settable by governance.
Yeah, like I'm noticing. Look at this. Require governance, not governance. So were there modifiers in Solidity?
Yes.
5? Okay, so you just didn't.
Yeah, there were. So you just didn't use them. Now in the compiled code, if I'm not mistaken, this is actually exactly what happens anyway. This is why modifiers are really bad on contract size. And in later code, I actually even remember seeing from Andre that instead of using modifiers, he would use an internal function.
Yeah, I was
going
to bring that up.
Yeah, go for it.
So I think we got to check actually the latest like Solidity 0.8.
Oh, if 8, yeah, it could be 8 optimizes better, but I don't think it does. Could be wrong.
But the idea is that instead of doing a modifier where it would inline your code and sort of bloat out the contract size, if you were to use it in multiple places, you could do the same thing with an internal function and put those requires there or whatever logic you need, and but that would instead jump to that code. It wouldn't duplicate it in the code.
Jumping's cheap.
Yeah,
Jumping's super cheap though.
Yeah. Okay. So onwards.
So much care for how much the vault has to be borrowed. Something required on hand to keep small withdrawals cheap. So yeah, here's even the available even seems to be talking about. Oh, so that's what the min is. Now I get it. Ah, the min is the minimum amount that should be left in the, or minimum percentage maybe, probably minimum amount that should be left in the vault so that people can withdraw more easily. Basically what's going to happen if they can't withdraw from the vault is instead of it just being a simple ERC20 transfer from the vault to the withdrawer, they're going to need maybe to call the controller and pull it from there, probably through the vault, making for another transfer or two. Or what I guess the worst case scenario is that they'll actually have to yank tokens out from where they're farming with them. So then you'll have to pay for like the withdrawal from wherever they're being farmed also. So this keeps things much more UX, like, you know, user friendly by making sure that there's some balance that's being left in the vault.
Yeah. Okay. Earn. Is this where is this like the harvest? I guess an earlier implementation of the harvest.
I'm assuming. No, it's the opposite. It's where it's actually sending from what's deposited there out to a controller. Take a look at 66. It's safe transfer, not transfer from. It's transferring them out to the controller.
Right. And then we're calling earn on the controller. Maybe this is
I guess what farms them out.
Yeah, or updating internal balances or accounting.
Oh, that could be.
Because there we go. Oh, well, that's balance, and we just calculate available.
Which I'm assuming is how much is there minus min or something like that.
Well, that's.
Oh wait, no, that's the one right above. I'm a genius.
So I guess in some way it transfers it all, like besides the minimum amount left on hand. To the controller, and then calls earn again. All right, interesting.
It does look like min is a percentage, doesn't it? Because in available, you're multiplying balance of by the min and then dividing it by the max.
Max is 10,000. It's a constant, so I mean, this looks like a scale number to me.
Yeah, but since you're multiplying and dividing, it's always going to be a percentage of the balance.
Yeah, so this is...
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah. That's all I meant.
Yeah.
Like, I was debating if it was like a flat, like there has to always be 10,000 die, or it's like kind of like fractional reserves in banks. It's a percentage of how much cash has been put into the bank.
Yeah. All right. So, deposit all. Balance of... Jeez.
Oh, so it's just a convenience function.
Yeah.
It's going to call deposit, and it'll just calculate what the amount should be by saying it's everything the person has from it.
Nice, actually.
It's I'm used to seeing that on front ends. It's interesting to see that in the Solidity, because I get the feeling that that is kind of maybe part of the age of the code. Because these days, I'm almost sure that's how you'd want to do it. You'd want to do something like this on the front end, give them a max button that just like does a simple balance of and figures out how much they've got, and then call deposit with that, as opposed to making them pay for that balance call by doing something like this.
Yeah, because this would just increase the gas cost of this operation, but you could be putting in the right amount to start with. Cool. So then we get balance. And that is pool. What was the balance? Did we go through that already?
Yeah, I don't remember that function.
It's the balance of this contract.
Oh, and you add the controllers also.
Yeah. So pool. Say that as pool. We're getting... So then we record the balance of this contract as before, and remember this now has this value plus whatever is in the controller. Then we take all the money or the deposited amount from the user, safe transfer from into this contract. Then we work out the after. So now we have an updated figure with more money in this contract.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
and then we figure out the amount from that again. And okay, it's even there in the comment. I guessed right. I'm so happy. I don't know why he says specifically deflationary, but it's for tokens that have all these weird properties to them, like either tax tokens like the infamous Safe Moon, or rebasing tokens like Ample, or whatever the case is. Like, you want to see how many you actually got. Actually, I don't know if it's going to help for Ample and the rebasers, but it will help for the tax tokens.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
I wonder if that's what he means by deflationary there.
I could see, I mean, this definitely would protect against the tax token thing.
Yeah.
All right, so then we have shares. Okay, so here, this is what it's going to do, I suppose. It's going to mint you. We saw
Y tokens based off of what your share in the pool is.
So this contract is actually an ERC20, which represents shares in the vault or the pool. And it needs to work out how many shares you get. So so it sets it as 0. And so here it will just basically mint you a flat amount, sort of a 1-to-1. So it's starting off at a 1-to-1 ratio for shares to underlying if no one else is deposited into this contract or this vault. Otherwise, it looks at the ratio of the total supply of this contract. Oh, sorry, of the shares. Actually.
Of the ERC20 token.
Yeah, total supply of the shares over the pool, which is
the total amount of DAI.
Well, it's the balance of this contract plus the controller. But
right, so it's the total amount of DAI in your on hand.
And important to note that this was the balance before any deposits happened, because we haven't updated this figure since receiving money. So that would be your shares. Cool. And then we just multiply this net amount that we received from the user by that ratio. That would be the shares.
Yeah. Interesting. And if you've been seeing some of the short-circuiting talk, I mean, theoretically, if you really wanted to optimize, you should probably flip around the if and the else here, because the if is only going to get triggered once.
Exactly. Yeah.
By like the first deposit, or if it somehow gets cleaned out, whereas almost everybody is going to be in the else. So just to save that evaluation, if you would put like if total supply not equal to 0, then shares equals amount, etc. You'll save most users a little itty bit of gas.
Well, actually, wouldn't it still need to do the evaluation? I guess then it wouldn't have to.
It won't need to evaluate the else though. It'll just jump over it.
Right. Okay. Cool. So there's a withdrawal.
At least I think so. I said that with a lot of confidence. I'm actually not 100% sure of that, but I'm pretty but it sounds right to me.
I'm not sure of the gas costs of an else, like specifically the else keyword.
Because they'll need to check if it's an else. I'm assuming there is some kind of code there, like probably a jump by.
Yeah.
Yeah, almost certainly a jump by that you saved there.
We're big jump eye boys these days in this episode. Suddenly, jumpy. Okay. So then there's withdrawal, which calls withdrawal.
Whose tweet was that? I can't remember who it was. I think it was someone in Element who was like, "What opcode are you?" It's just like inspired a lot of absolute nerd responses. Because I'm a horrible person who feels like they have too much time on their hands. I literally went to EVM codes and tried to find the most obscure opcode I could and put it in.
Which opcode are you, William?
Oh my gosh, what was it? Sign extend. I went for. Or sig extend. It's either sig extend or sign extend. There it is.
Sig extend.
Sign extend. There we go.
Minimum gas 5. So you cheap, dude.
Okay, fine. I'll go for S load next time. Yeah.
Xpenny boy. Yeah, create. I'll be create.
Better than being a self-destruct, giving out gas to people.
Create 2. You're invalid, Nan.
Invalid and self-destruct, I figured were too easy. That was just like too easy. Okay.
We're going to get back there. Chat, what opcodes are you? Why don't you put that in chat? Okay, so there's harvest. There's the infamous harvest function that still, I think, is alive and well today in the modern Urine code base.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just in Viper, but yeah.
Yeah.
I'm wondering though if we should actually like do a couple of maybe like faster rounds instead of like diving into harvest, which is probably going to be a little bit more complex.
Okay, yeah.
What would you say about maybe jumping to keeper? And I wouldn't mind going through rarity for a little bit also. Like I am a bit familiar with the rarity code, it happens to be, but like I could poke around in rarity a bit.
There's Urine keeper. I had keeper somewhere here, didn't I? Gosh, there's keeper. All right, keeper network. Cool.
So just like a little word on keeper beforehand. One thing blockchains are really bad at is automation. Like you can't tell a smart contract, do this when that block comes. Like in 10 blocks, make a transaction. The smart contract isn't aware of time passing or anything like that. It only knows how to do what it's hit to do when it's hit to do it. So Keeper, I think probably more famously Gelato, have basically come up with incentive layers where you can plug into their platform and people will just run bots that will do tasks at appointed times because they're incentivized to do so. Like you leave some money there for them. Like you embed that into the platform. Like if they do the task at the right time, so then they get kickback for doing so. I seem to remember Andre referring to this as a cron job for the blockchain, which sounds a bit more automatic than it actually is. What it actually ends up being is that there are people who run bots that can make transactions, probably with things like cron jobs, and then they hit the function at the right time for you.
Yep.
But yeah, that's what Keeper is.
That's the vibe. Should we look at this, the job interface? There's another harvest.
Yeah, go for it. We aren't going to see everything, but like, you know, we can look around it a little bit.
Yeah.
There's like the Andre Lightning session.
So there's another harvest function. We'll be glad to see.
I'm assuming in this case that's what allows them to get the kickback if they've done the task.
Yeah, it probably is like retrieve your monies kind of function.
Actually, can you just keep it there on those interfaces for a second?
Sure, yeah.
So we've got interface keeper, and there's a view function there is keeper. I'm assuming that like you need to put that in your contracts so that the keeper can like see that this is a keeper contract. It's almost like an ERC 165-ish kind of thing.
Yeah.
As in, it's just like a way of seeing that this does support that. I'm wondering if in V2 they actually used interfaces, like a 165 interface as opposed to like its own view function. But yeah.
Work receipts. This would return a. You would put in a keeper and an amount. So this.
Oh wait, maybe this is. I wonder if this is the hub.
Yeah. I mean, so it looks like you would deploy your own contract, which is a keeper.
Right? That could be.
And then you would register that on the hub, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm guessing. And the original, okay, so it's interesting. You don't pay in Keeper KPR. You provide liquidity on Keeper WETH, and that gives you credits automatically. Does that mean you're paying with the fees of Keeper WETH? I wonder. No, that doesn't make too much sense. I actually wonder how the kickback worked. Your liquidity provided is never reduced. So we need to have, then call add liquidity, specifying the job new address, the amount, the year. This will transfer your LP tokens to the contract and keep them in escrow. Okay, interesting.
So that's quite a few hoops to jump through there.
Yeah.
So you have to provide liquidity, then give it to this contract to hold in escrow, and then after a period of time, 14 days, you can remove your liquidity.
Right. I'm getting puzzled where the payment is though, because what? How are they getting paid then?
Maybe that's like sort of collateral, because I think there's a way to dispute if
if they did the job or not.
Yeah, if they did the job or if they acted honestly or something.
Yeah, let's take a look at the code. Maybe we'll figure it out in the code.
Right.
Oh, it's truffle, man.
Is it? Wow.
I think maybe I was wrong. I thought I saw truffle.
Yeah, truffle config. That is odd.
Yeah, and you've got the migrations folder over there. Yeah.
Wild. Do we want to look at V1 or
job?
Job.
Yeah, let's look at job.
Well, there's keeper as well, just straight up.
Okay, yeah, do keeper. Sounds great.
Oh gosh. So we are in
right, it's a flattened Andre contract. I forgot. Andre likes flattening.
Does he? Oh. I dislike flattened contracts like this. It's so hard to find like what I'm actually.
Oh, reading them, they're easier for deploying.
Yeah, sure. Fair enough.
Okay, keeper V1 helper, KPRH. Looks like we're still in V1 with this instantly. Yeah. And it's interesting. It has a name in for this token.
Yeah.
Even though the contract itself is not ERC20.
It's very odd. So he's, I guess, coding up an ERC20 token here, but with, well,
delegates, checkpoints, allowances, balances, some permit stuff, it looks like. I'm guessing, 712 stuff.
Yeah.
Nonces. Delegate change, delegate votes, checkpoint from block and votes.
Oh, wait, you know what this is? It's probably just the keeper token.
Yeah, but it's not an ERC20 contract. Unless it's inherited into a contract that's ERC20. Oh, I should have seen that coming. Yeah, I think if you go down, this will get inherited in a contract, which is ERC20. But this is kind of like the delegation and some other stuff. So it's like a funky way of doing it.
Wait, what on earth?
A lot of mappings.
What is happening? I didn't even skip something. I think we're still in the same contract.
Funky.
Good lord.
Yeah, let's look at.
There are a lot of events. There are more. I guess we're now into like separate.
The job part. That was delegation before, I think.
Yeah, well, that was like sort of ERC20 token and delegation and like voting, snapshot stuff. And now we're into some other features, which is, I suppose this is the lockup.
Yeah. Good call.
He's now changed to calling it, instead of max base for the divisor or the denominator in those in the divisions.
Yeah.
Hey, 0xe. He uses that for ETH instead of.
I'm debating if that is 0xe or if that's just 0x000000e.
Wonderful.
I think it's the latter, actually.
I'll do that.
You need you probably need remix. You'd have to like return address 0xe and see what it gives you. If anyone in chat knows.
All right, there are a lot of mappings here.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So many of these are mapping between an address and other things. It makes me wonder if it would have been better to have like one mapping or maybe a couple of mappings and then have them map to a struct.
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
That's my new big move. I'm getting really into that.
Do we want to get into some logic?
Maybe. Add credit ETH. Okay, so it does sound okay. There is something about adding ETH for a job here, and then add credit, which I'm guessing is an ERC20 token. Yeah, like you could see an add credit ETH that's basically just transferring some ETH over to governance. Interesting. And then an add credit. What does this require? Jobs job. Sure. Maybe each job lives at its own address. Interesting. It looks like add credit also lets you pick from an arbitrary ERC20. That seems to be the first argument. Address credit is what token is being used, like on line 869.
Yeah.
You can see it just transfers from that, which is interesting also.
And is that so? Is
Things are going to get weird if. Huh?
Is this like the bounty that you can put on the job?
I'm assuming.
So
I am assuming.
Yeah, then that would make sense, I suppose, for you to elect some currency. If you like, someone's going to incentivize and die, someone's going to incentivize and ETH.
I was actually just wondering what would happen if someone used something like SafeMoon or a tax token over there. So you're right, the received is going to be lower. No, a rebasing token, I think, would be where things would get whacked.
Yeah.
Because the amount that's there could end up being less than the amount that's going to get paid out. Not just that, the value isn't going to be incredibly correlated to that amount by the time it's paying out. But I mean, yeah, that's just the strange edge case. I don't mean that as a complaint about the code even. I don't think this is meant to handle cases like that.
Yeah.
Just fun to think about it.
Ready to move on here? We could,
yeah, let's do it.
Do you want to jump to another function in here, or do you want to jump to rarity?
Let's do rarity, actually. I know my way around there a little bit.
Okay. Rarity. I wonder. There we go. Mr. Cronje. And I've already started. Look at that.
Core. If I remember right. Actually, it's been a bit. I think it's in core. It's either in core or in codex.
Mm-hmm.
So base, I think. Yeah, base. I'd say start with base.
Base. I remember there's rarity gold that we would slowly earn.
Yeah. There is rarity gold. I think you start earning it on level 2 or something like that. Something I'll point out is that this code, as far as I know, is actually further ahead than the actual rarity that's in use, at least in the front ends that I'm aware. I seem to remember it has a lot more classes. I am going to kind of give my, I guess, like, you know, out myself as a complete nerd just by making comments about the whole D20 and D&D system. But for those who don't know, so Rarity was basically just like a side project that Andre did, which kind of codifies a D&D-like system. As in Dungeons and Dragons, for those who don't know, is a kind of RPG game that's played between people, not necessarily using a computer or anything like that, and has a whole algorithmic system for characters to kind of like level up and have various powers and things like that, predominantly in a fantasy type setting. Andre is a gamer, happens to be. For those who really want the nerd alpha, has been DMing in D&D and World of Darkness actually also for a number of years. And so kind of he just threw together a D20-like system over here. So like different characters have different classes. You may be familiar with that from various RPG computer games. Can you scroll up a bit, actually, for that other kind of casting time? Interesting. So first we have classes, which are like the different kinds of character you can be. So like, you know, you can be kind of fighter classes, like a barbarian or a fighter or a paladin. You can be kind of skill-based stuff, like a rogue or a bard. Magic users, like wizard. And then there's a bunch of other things that get thrown in here. Which I don't really think the front end's actually adapted. Andre did not build a front end for this. His usual front end guy, Anton, didn't build a front end for it. But a lot of other people did. Like Faku from Urine did, for instance, Rarity Extended. And it's still an actively developed ecosystem, kind of like Loot. it got a lot more quiet after the loot hype kind of slowed down, I'd say. But it does still look like there's a decent amount of action going on in both ecosystems, actually.
Yeah. Really? So is there...
Okay, yeah.
Is there any new kind of lore being built out around Rarity?
I don't know. In loot, there definitely is. There's a ton of work being done in loot to build up an entire like mythos and lore around the loot world. And I suspect that's trickling over to Rarity, but I could be wrong.
Okay.
Can't say I'm like following closely.
So this is just a bunch of sort of...
Yeah, it's interesting to see what he puts in here and what he doesn't. Like up above, there was if you are a magic user, picking what school of magic you use. Saving throws and range have to do with reacting to saving throw is to react to various circumstances. Range generally has to do with what kind of attack somebody is making. The struct you can see half of at the top of your screen right now is about how long, like you can't do an infinite amount of things. It's what's called turn-based combat. If anybody's an old Final Fantasy nerd, you may remember it from back in the day when Final Fantasy was like that. When I say back in the day, I think that's as recent as 13, if I remember right, but whatever. So you have a certain amount of actions you can take in a round, or everybody has a certain amount of actions they can do in a round, and then you just basically do like turn after turn after turn after turn. Yeah.
What's interesting
so
is,
yeah,
he's returning strings here the whole time. You could probably use this as an enum for each type, each different function. I think that might be more gas efficient than returning a whole string.
It would definitely be more gas efficient. My guess is that it makes a lot of it just gets a lot of overhead in the front end, because now your front end has to keep track of like what range 0 is, what range 1 is, and like all of that.
Yeah, but like,
as opposed to just like being able to process it.
I thought
that's all
the
these
whole
things.
thing is that we just shift all the work to the front end guys, and we do like the bare minimum on the contracts these days.
Yeah, I mean, Andre's never been a heavy optimizer. You know what I mean? But I get, yeah, you know, if Transmissions 11 was writing this, yeah, I do suspect everything would be in Unum. Though I'm thinking also, there's something that's nagging me a bit here. I mean, I guess to some degree, I'm wondering why you even need these functions. Yeah, like what's calling this function with an ID? I am actually kind of questioning, like the summoning function that returns a class. Even there, like, what needs to call this function? I'm really wondering. I mean, he called the contract codex. I really wonder if this is just a reference, to be honest.
Yeah, maybe just for like a front end.
I think this really is just a reference.
Okay, then it doesn't.
And that inside he's probably just using numbers, which is essentially the same thing as Nenum anyway.
Yeah.
You mind popping out a level? Maybe we'll take a look at another contract.
Sure. What should we do here? Where was the dungeon where we could fight things?
I don't think that was him.
Really?
Actually. Yeah. I think that was created externally.
Rarity. We didn't get to this.
Oh yeah, so do rarity.sol. That sounds good.
Yeah, there's a string.
Right, this is starting to make sense. Yeah, because each character I seem to remember is in the ERC 721. Yeah, okay, yeah, this is starting to it's coming back to me a little bit now. Each character that you summon, which in rarity talk means that you're creating a new character. So each one of them is in the ERC 721. Oh, I'm seeing that we actually have someone in chat who is playing around with rarity and the derivatives. I'd love to hear what you were doing with Rarity, if you don't mind saying in the chat. Okay, so yeah, this is just basic 721 stuff, it looks like. Mind scrolling down.
Standard stuff, 721. Is there anything? Then we should. It's the longest contract. I feel like there's going to be interesting stuff.
It's flattening. It's just like flattened 721 stuff.
Okay, and enumerable as well. Okay, fair.
Yeah.
There we go. There is Rarity. Okay, so this is his counter, I suppose. Next summoner.
Mm-hmm.
XP per day. So 250 we get per day. And then we use 18 decimals, I assume.
Yeah, I'm guessing decimals and XP is a bit weird.
Yeah.
XP is how your character levels up. They like do stuff and get XP, and if they have a certain amount of XP, they can get the next level. That grows, so like the amount of experience you need to get from level 1 to level 2 is much less than what you need to get from level 5 to level 6. And every summoned character has like an ID, which is why you see these mappings are going from uint. So like, you know how much XP a particular character has. Adventurer's log. I wonder if that's the last time they did a quest, because he has a 24-hour cooldown on those. What class they are. So there you'll use that class ID, and if you want to know what that means, you can check that up in the codec. It is interesting. Yeah, it is interesting that he doesn't use an enum for that, on second thought. And then level. Interesting. It's interesting he uses a uint 256 for this, because levels traditionally don't go amazingly high. Yeah. Like a level 20 character is essentially deific in the D20 system. Not really deific. I seem to remember those are like somewhere around 30 or 40 or something. But like I like nothing's going over 100.
Yeah, so you could use a uint 8, which would get you to 255.
Yeah, which is higher than anything goes. But I'm assuming he just uses 256 because it is what it is. You know,
so I think that's the style. He just like smashes out code and is not at all concerned about gas optimization.
Sure, also, you wouldn't gain anything by using a uint 8, even on gas. I'm debating it might even be worse, but I don't think so because it's a mapping.
Yeah, it depends. Like again, what is this XP?
If you were packing all of these into a struct, though, that's what you could do.
There we go.
You could pack all of these into one struct, and then you could pack then you could pack them.
Yeah. So there we go.
Now we're talking. Now we're optimizing.
Now you can show your mapping for structs thing. Where so we have. Yeah. So we have the.
Yeah, we'd have a struct character, and it would track their XP, their log, their class, and their level.
Nice.
It would be an easy place to put name. Also, while we're at it. As his name is like an extension. Event summoned, event leveled, and then here's this function adventure, which is that 1 per day that you're able to do. And then that gives static XP, like you can see on line 583. You can spend XP on stuff. Interesting. You can level up. So there is this concept of approving, which is actually how Daycare got started. Like the first big extension that was built on Rarity was something called Daycare, which you approve the Daycare, and the Daycare would make sure that you always did your quest, which is almost like a mini keeper-like thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see a class table over there, and then you have base 64 encoding, because what he did is he made, like, each character is an NFT, again, and he had them kind of loot-like, as in it's an SVG, but the SVG dynamically upgrades with, like, it dynamically updates itself with your stats. So in the D&D world, you have 6 base stats: strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. I am a total certifiable nerd. And the level and all of that gets rendered onto your NFT. Yeah. So that's why you need the base 64 encoding.
Yeah.
One cool thing if we want to check it out, the last 5 minutes is loot, which is kind of where Rarity got its inspiration from.
Sure.
So loot basically was a generative NFT that used your address as a bit of a random seed and made this SVG with 6 items on it that sound like they belong in a fantasy world. And oh, right. So then Loot spawned a number of derivative projects, one of which was A Gold or Adventurer's Gold or Gold for Adventurers, whatever, which was an ERC20 token, which quickly just became the speculative asset. Now, gold and character wealth are generally a big part of these RPG games. So Andre wanted to take it away from being speculative. So what he did is he made it that you don't own the ERC20 token. Only your NFT can. So that it was much harder to speculate on, from what I recall. So if we wanted to take a look at Adventurer's Gold, actually, I would say maybe that's like the best thing we could do with the last 2 minutes. The Rarity Gold, that is.
In Adventure.
So that'd be in Rarity. It was in Rarity.
Okay.
Like the way Andre did it to restrict it to the what's it called?
This one.
So the WR Gold.
Wrapped.
Yeah, why is this wrapped though? I wonder if I'm in the wrong place.
Wrapped Rarity Gold.
Fungible address and gold.
Okay, here we go.
Oh, this might be a way of wrapping it so that people could own it. Because the actual Rarity Gold itself was only owned by the NFTs. I don't know, let's take a quick look. We've got 2 minutes anyway.
Wait, this is
someone who's wrapping it, I think.
well,
I have no idea who this is, actually. Who is this?
it's the guy who, well, he works for Band Protocol, but people suspect him of being a certain chef from back in the day.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Fascinating.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that was him, man.
Yep.
It's a small world after all, huh?
Yeah.
So he's wrapping. Okay, so he's wrapping the Rarity Gold so that you would be able to use it normally, because the whole point of the Rarity Gold is really only supposed to be for the characters. But since you can more or less wrap everything, it's kind of impossible to enforce that, which is interesting.
Supply.
Interesting.
Standard ERC stuff.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on? Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like it's summoning. Oh, because it needs to be I get why. Because it needs to be a rarity character in order to be able to have gold.
Oh. Wow.
That's the shtick. Yeah, it makes itself into a rarity character so it can get gold.
That's actually so clever, I think.
It is, yeah. I give him some credit. Can you check what 11 is? On the codex or in the core? I bet 11 is going to be rogue. This is complete. I'm just going to nerd out. Why not? It's already half past, so YOLO. Rogues used to be called thieves.
Is this base?
Yeah, you can find it in base.sol.
Wizard.
Wait, check it in core, actually. I'm wondering.
Core? Wait, did we have...
The rarity.sol, rarity.sol. Because there was a different name table there.
Yeah. Where was that? Oh, here we go.
There it is.
Oh, was it again?
No, it's still wizard. All right, my bad. It was worth checking, though.
So, token
in any event.
Wizard.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Well then, Andre, we miss you, man.
Yeah.
We miss you. But so long. Thanks for all the fish. Thanks for all the DeFi protocols and rarity and everything else. And we hope we see you as some Anon Pepe frog soon.
Yeah. Cheerio, Andre. Good luck with whatever you do next.